Hi there, my name's Sean Longest. I'm the product lead for Conductor4SQL, and in today's video I'm going to take you through the metadata compare feature of Conductor4SQL. As per the previous videos, please be sure to watch this in full screen and in a decent resolution so you can see the details of everything I'm doing. Right, so today we're going to cover metadata compare. If you watched the previous videos, you would have realized that Conductor4SQL is a very powerful tool for administering and controlling and doing very powerful stuff with a very large SQL environment. And the same holds true for the metadata compare feature. So what this does is it gives you the ability to compare tables, stored procedures, functions, views, and indexes across very large SQL environments. So typically what some other tools may do is they'll do a one-to-one compare. So you may point the tool at one database and point it at one other database and perhaps ask it to see if there's any differences in certain objects. What Conductor4SQL does is slightly different. It expects you to have an extremely large SQL environment, which could be 50 or 60 instances, hundreds or even thousands of instances. And what Conductor4SQL will do is will actually go and interrogate your entire SQL environment if you choose to check for metadata differences. So you can actually say, hey, this is a table or tables, this is what I'd say the definitions of them should be. Go out there to 100 or 200 instances of SQL and do the analysis and report back to me if there's metadata differences. So it's much more of a one to extremely many type of metadata compare, not really a one-to-one of some other tools. So it's very powerful and very time-saving. Also what it does, it gives you central reporting back on the metadata differences. So once Conductor's gone across your entire SQL environment and done the analysis you've asked it to do, you can see all the results in that one central user interface that Conductor4SQL offers. Also, we offer a line-by-line T-SQL code comparison. So if we come back, for example, and say, hey, this table isn't the same across 20 instances, Conductor4SQL will show you line by line the T-SQL exactly where the table definitions are different so that you can make a decision and correct it if need be. And then lastly, Conductor4SQL offers an easy central fix of the metadata with a click or two. So if you've done an analysis, for example, of a bunch of stored procedures across 100 instances of your SQL Server environment, it's come back and said, hey, these two stored procedures are different at these 30 instances of SQL. With one or two clicks, Conductor4SQL will go and fix that for you. And it allows you to therefore analyze and correct metadata issues in a very large SQL environment very quickly and very rapidly. So let's jump into the demo. If I go back to the Conductor4SQL user interface, you need to go to the central client control option on the left hand side like I just have. You should be familiar with this with the other videos. The distributed command and query and file options are here, and so is the metadata compare. If you look on the top right hand side, you'll see a drop down, system query drop down. Now system queries are pre-built features and usability that we've put into Conductor4SQL, and as you can see there, we've incorporated the metadata compare for tables, views, functions, stored procedures, and constraints over here. So we're going to actually go ahead and do this. In this demo tutorial, I'm going to show you comparing table and stored procedures, but the same holds true for the other object types. So it's very easy to set this up and do the metadata compare. So the first thing, the only thing you really need to do from your side is you need to create what you deem to be the version of the object that you want to compare across your SQL environment on the Conductor4SQL central server. So I'm connected now to that central instance of SQL on which we've installed the central server for Conductor4SQL. That was covered in the first video, so please be sure to watch that if you're not sure what I'm speaking about. So all you need to do is actually create that object. And in this example, we're going to compare a table. So I'm creating that table on the central instance of SQL Server. So I'm saying that this is the table definition I'm expecting or I want to analyze out there in my SQL environment. What I'm going to do now, you don't normally need to do. I'm going to actually use the send command feature of Conductor4SQL to go and create this table everywhere. You don't normally need to do this. Obviously, typically, you will actually be doing comparisons of objects that are already out there in your SQL environment. I'm just walking through the demo here step by step. So now we've gone and created that table everywhere. And the next step is to do the comparison. I'm just going to wait for this one instance. As you can see, if you haven't picked up from the previous videos, yellow simply means we're still delivering that instruction or that SQL script to that instance of SQL. So that just takes a few seconds. There we go. It's all green. So that table's been created everywhere. I'm going to go to my system queries. As I showed you just now, I'm going to select tables. I'm going to say I want to execute this metadata compare, where I'm going to say to all, meaning my entire SQL environment that's been configured and set up on Conductor4SQL. So I'm going to choose the object I want to compare. So obviously you need to give it the database, the schema. Now I'm going to choose this one table, but you can choose as many tables as you like. This is just for this demo. I'm going to do the one that I just showed you. Optionally, as you can see at the bottom here, is the client database and the client schema. You may want to compare a certain object that resides in a certain schema and database in one place to a different database and schema name in another place. So we allow you to actually change these values. So this might be the database and schema name of this table, but where you want to go compare it in your SQL environment could be a different database. So you can enter those values there. Then I'm going to say OK and yes. And it's already come back. So this is very similar to the distributed query that I showed in an earlier video. You will now click on that. You see a detailed audit of all the instances of SQL that we went and did that analysis, that comparison to, and then you can click on View All. Now, in this window, you get your consolidated result. So you can see that at these three instances at the top where the status is matching, you can see your table definition is exactly the same. Now, even though I sent the exact same table definition to my entire SQL environment, I am getting differences reported. Why? Because we even checked down to the correlation detail of a column. Now, because those instances of SQL had a different default correlation, when I sent down that create table script, those columns were created with different correlations. So you can see we even go down to that level of comparison. And as you can see at the top, we even compare correlation, the data type, the data length, precision, scale, nullability, identity. All of those are checked. So there's not too much wrong here. You can see it's mostly matching. So I'm going to close this window. What I'm going to do now, back in Management Studio, to simulate some differences, I'm actually going to connect to one of my other instances out there of SQL, and I'm going to actually alter the table definition, which is what I'm doing now. I'm going to connect to one of my other instances, and I'm going to drop the table completely. So now I want to do that comparison again. So I'm going to say, right, I want to do a table comparison like we did before. Choose the database, the schema, and the object name. Once again, you can compare many tables at once. Say OK. And in real time, got my results. Once again, like I've mentioned, and it's very good for demo purposes, I've got one server out there that's a little bit slower than the rest. Once again, yellow is not a bad thing. Yellow just means we're still trying to do what needs to be done. As I mentioned, Conductor is very resilient. If I refresh now, there we go. They're all green. I'm going to say View All. Now you can see a lot more is going on. Straight away, you can see, well, there is a table missing. Here you can see column definition differences, nullabilities that are different, lengths that are different. Once again, you've got your search boxes up here. You can imagine if you're doing this analysis across hundreds of instances of SQL Server, it's going to be a lot of information here. You may first want to focus on, in this example, well, where is the table missing completely? That's my biggest concern. So you can type in missing, and we will filter that result set so you can see there is the instance that it's missing at. And you can type any one of these status definitions at the top there to quickly filter and find specific things that you want to fix. Now what's really nice is, even though we consolidate the whole result set for you here, you may want to see this for yourself in T-SQL. That's what the magnifying glass on the right hand side is here for here. So if you click on that, we actually show you line by line exactly what the differences are. So you can see here on the column last name, we've got a data type difference, and you can see on the last column there called statement flag, we've actually got a nullability that's different. So you can see exactly what is the difference. Now, tables is the only one of these schema compares that we don't give you a one-click fix. So once you've seen the differences there, you can close that. We don't give you a one-click fix here on purpose because tables can be very sensitive. Depending what is wrong with your table, there may be a different way you want to fix it. In some scenarios, you might actually want to move the data out of a table, drop the whole table, recreate it and move the data back. Other scenarios, you may just want to alter the table and add a column or two. So depending on what's wrong with the table definitions, the way you fix it can be very different. So in that scenario, we offer you the ability to focus in on the instances of SQL that are different. So I'm going to just filter here on difference. So I can see, right, all of these instances are different. I've used the code line review option on the right hand side to actually check what all the differences are, and now I know that all of these instances are the ones I want to put the correct table definition to. So in that scenario, you can simply group all of these instances by highlighting them and right clicking like I just have and say add to group. What we will then do is put all of those instances of SQL in an ad hoc group for you, which I've shown in previous videos. You can then write this correct script to fix your table, depending on what you deem to be correct, and then you can send that fix to that group, thereby fixing a whole bunch of instances of SQL Server to have the correct table definition. It's very easy to do. The next example I'm going to show you is a stored procedure. So what I'm going to do now is exactly as we've done before. All you need to do is put the correct definition of that stored procedure on the central server. So all I'm doing now is I'm creating that stored procedure, what I deem to be correct code for that stored procedure, on the central server. So now it's there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go and create that stored procedure at all my clients. Once again, typically you don't need to do this. It's just the way I demo it. Typically the object you want to compare already exists out there across all your instances of SQL. So I'm going to say send a command, send it everywhere, go and create that stored procedure. Another good thing to demo here is you cannot use fully qualified names in creating a stored procedure. You cannot say database schema object name. You can only say database schema name. That is what the use database box is for, right above your SQL script. This puts your SQL script in the correct database context when you can't do it inside your script. So here, I'm going to put in the name of the database I want this to execute in, so I know the stored procedure will be created in the right database. And I'm going to say submit. And if I refresh, take a few seconds, you can see everything's going green. That stored procedure is busy being created across my entire SQL environment. And we're just waiting for one more. There we go. Everything is green. So now I'm going to go and compare that stored procedure. And I'm going to say, once again, from the system queries I showed you earlier, I want to compare stored procedures. I want to compare it everywhere. I'm going to go choose the stored procedure or stored procedures that I want to compare. I'm going to choose this one because I've only created that one on Central. That's why it's the only one available for selection. But you can compare as many as you like. I'm going to say OK. And it's done. Now if I click View All, I can see under my status column, it's matching across my entire SQL environment because I sent the exact same definition down. So what I'm going to do now in Management Studio is I'm going to simulate some differences. So I'm going to connect to one of our clients' instances of SQL, and I'm going to change the stored procedure definition. Okay, it's been changed. So what I'll do, I'll go and run the comparison again. I'll choose the same stored procedure. Say OK. It's done. Now if I go to view differences, you can see it's matching everywhere except one instance. Now we give you a hash bytes code because you could have stored, if you're analyzing a stored procedure across 1,000 instances of SQL, you could find 50 of those instances have a different stored procedure definition. But those 50 could all be different in the same way. So this hash code will tell you if you only really have to analyze the difference at one of them because it's different the same way everywhere. So if I now click that magnifying glass, once again, we will show you line by line exactly where the stored procedure is different. So you can see here there's a data type difference. Here there's two places where the where clause is different. So you can now say, right, you can make the call That's definitely wrong. I want the version that I deem to be correct to be there. And that's where this one-click fix. On the right-hand side, you see a tick box. If you hit that, we'll go and send that correct stored procedure definition to that correct instance of SQL. If you have many differences across many instances of SQL, at the bottom here, you'll see a Fix All button. If you click on that, we'll go and make that stored procedure or stored procedures the same everywhere it's different once you had the chance to do the analysis to see if that's what you want done. So I'm going to click Quick Fix. In the background, Conductor for SQL knows exactly what to do. We know what script to send down. We know which instances of SQL need to be fixed. We do all of that for you. So we just say, you say submit, goes green, there you go. Now you know that this stored procedure is exactly the same in your entire SQL environment. Very easy, very quick. You can imagine the amount of time this saves on a massive SQL environment to find out this kind of analysis and fix it. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a great feature. I hope you guys will enjoy using it. Thanks for joining me.